Right. Hey, everyone. First of all, awesome. I'm super excited to be here on the first Leader to Leader. What a neat series, and really excited to join you all today. I'm going to be honest with you. In my mind, I feel like I just got out of college, but actually, it's been forever because I graduated in 2006. But I am a native Memphis. I went to Cordova High School. I have a twin sister, actually, so we both made the decision to go to Washington University in St. Louis together. Initially, I'd signed the paperwork to go to Spelman, and she'd signed the paperwork to go to Vanderbilt. And then we had that one last college visit, and we made the decision to go together. So it was a neat thing. It was a really cool experience going into college, which I guess classification wise, are you all sophomores, freshmen, seniors, a whole mixture? A mixture? Okay, cool. So when I got to college, one, it was super exciting. It's your first time away from home, and I know things look a little different right now. So I really think that you guys really are special and are showing true leadership because of being able to kind of roll with the punches, so to speak, in this new COVID environment and this virtual environment. But when I got to college, eh, or let me rewind the tape. So for the majority of my young life, I thought that I wanted to be an attorney. I was like, this is what I want to do. I dressed up as a lawyer for career day. I remember I also wanted to be an elected official. It's just weird. I was that person. So my parents, for whatever reason, thought that cable television was not a good investment for your children. They just didn't. I really don't get it. So we watched a lot of regular television, which means we watched a lot of news. So I used to watch the world news with my dad every single night. And he was a political science major in college, so he always kind of shared his perspective. So I got interested, and mind you, I'm talking about second or third grade. I didn't know what politics was. I was just like, oh, this looks neat. This looks kind of cool. I discovered then that because that's when Bill Clinton was running for office. I discovered then about the family political affiliation and what all that meant. But when he won the election, I saw the inauguration and I saw the inaugural ball on television because again, when you don't have cable, you watch a lot of basic television. And I told my parents, I said, "Listen, I said I want to go to that one day. And that looks cool." My mom was like, "I'm going to take you to an inaugural ball. Don't worry about it. It's going to be cool." And the first one we went to, well, actually the only one we've gone to, it was Barack Obama's inaugural ball for the Southern region. So it was really cool. But I'll talk about that a little later. So fast forward, I'm in sixth grade. I see Harold Ford Jr. get elected to Congress. I'm like, this is a young, attorney. He just graduated from law school. Look at what he's doing now. Mind you, I didn't think about the fact that he was also a member of this storied political dynasty, but I saw, if he can do it, that's something I can aspire to do as well. When I got to high school, again, still wanted to be a lawyer. About junior year, decided, oh, I really like science. I think I'm going to be pre-med. Okay, so here, like it's like a monkey wrench, right? Now, my sister, my twin, has always wanted to be a doctor. She dressed up on career day. She would dress up as a doctor, and I'd carry a little briefcase and pretend to be a lawyer. So I decided I'm fascinated with science junior and senior year, and I'm like, I'm going to be a doctor. This is great. Get to college, right? And I'm in chemistry, which I did not like. Okay. I'm in chemistry lab. I am like trying to avoid taking physics at all costs because I didn't take it in high school. I took biology too because I didn't want to. We had to do 3 years of science. So I did honors biology. I did honors chemistry. Again, I don't like chemistry, but I did it. And then biology too. So I get to college and I'm like, I don't want to have to take physics, but apparently I'm going to have to. I remember studying with one of my friends who she's a children's book author now, but then she started out in the engineering school, then she kicked it over to pre-med, then she kicked it over to the business school, and she finally settled with an English degree. So just know it's okay not to know what you want to do. And she graduated on time as well. So it's okay to find your pathway. But I decided after that first chemistry exam, which by the way, it was nuclear chemistry. So I get to college and I'm like, man, I got a 30 on my ACT. I had like over a 4.0 GPA. I'm smart. I've been being told I'm smart all my life. And then I get to college and it was like, ha, you're not that smart. You're not nearly as smart as you thought you were. And I remember thinking, I don't like chemistry. I don't want to take physics. I avoided taking calculus in high school. I took advanced algebra and trig instead. Like, why? And I really don't like science. Why would I want to be a doctor? It like dawned on me, yeah, just because you're interested in like the outcome or the field, it doesn't mean necessarily that's something that you want to do. And so I decided to switch back to pre-law. So happy I did. The school I went to, pre-law was not a major, so you can major in anything you wanted to. Which really that's how it is when you're trying to go to law school. The most important thing, they want to see a diversity of your degree. You don't have to say major in criminology or major in something like this. A lot of the folks are music majors, they are English majors, they're in the humanities. The most important thing is that you do well, that you have a good GPA. Doesn't matter what you major in. So I decided I'm gonna major in what I want to major in, which was political science and African American studies. I enjoyed it. I will say this, word to the wise. One semester I decided it would be so cool if I took 21 units like a clown. Okay. And right, like legit. I did it, and and so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But I will tell you, I was in class a lot, especially because I had several classes that only met once a week. So what that means is you have 3 hours of instruction per day, like per meeting, because you have to get all those hours in, and then also papers will catch up with you. So by the time I got down to the end of the semester, I had over 100 pages in papers that I had to turn in, like for my final exam. So I would say, be careful about that too. But so I decided to major in political science, African American studies. Loved it. I was a TA for political science, the intro to political science. I absolutely enjoyed it. When I was in college, I served as the president of the Association of Black Students for 2 years. So, and I'll tell you this a little bit about leadership. When I first got to school, I'm like, okay, so transitioning from high school where I had to be there 7:15. So I made the mistake of taking an 8:30 class thinking this is no big deal. So 2 weeks in, realized, yeah, this is a big deal and I'm not about this life at all. And especially when you all of a sudden get to live with people who become your best friends, which, I mean, I know a lot of people are transitioning, you're virtual right now, but the time will come where you're back to that environment. And 8:30 classes are not, that's just not, it's not good. It's not a good look. So anyway, my thing was, you can go. We didn't really dress up. It wasn't that type of school where you had to put on like your best clothes, your club clothes to go to class. So I wore a lot of PJs, pajama pants. I'd coordinate them. It would match with a t-shirt. So I started to recognize, though, if I want to be president of the Association of Black Students, I need to clean my image up a little bit. And because it's like you have something inside of you, but you have to make sure that that's also projected. I ran for publicity chair and I did the best job that I could, right? And people really, and I still wore pajamas, by the way, but people really, and flip flops. My sister likes to joke that I wore flip flops when it was snowing. I don't recall that. But anyhow, I did a really good job in that position. And when I decided to run for president, it was three of us that ran, two guys ran, and I ran, and they tried to act like I wasn't serious enough or something to that effect. We had a radio debate, opportunity, preparation. I was ready for it. I kicked their butts, not to toot my own horn, but I did. And so it really kind of showed folks that this is a position I need to be in. And our executive board did a phenomenal job. When I inherited the position, we were like $50,000 in debt. I threw a series of parties because you have to know your audience, right? So college kids, we study, but we work hard. We want to play hard. Through a series of parties, was able to raise that money and kind of get us into the black. We had great speakers coming in. We were able to bring in Cornel West to speak. We had Mae Jameson come in, who was just awesome. We had a bunch of different, Bob Moses, a bunch of different civil rights advocates, and because we hosted a speaker series. It was a really neat thing. And when the second term, I was not going to run, but people urged me to run, so much so that I thought, you know what, maybe I really am doing a good job and this is something I need to continue. So decide, your senior year, you're like, oh my gosh, actually junior year, okay? Because you're like, if you're trying to go to medical school, you need to be leaning into that MCAT. And if you're trying to go to law school, you need to lean into the LSAT. I just say get you a good group of folks, study as hard as you can, and have fun too. That's the most important thing. Like college, there's no other time really, I think, in your life than college, right? It's super fun. You meet people that will become your lifelong friends. You get to study all sorts of neat things. Study abroad. I did not do it. One regret. So once we get past this whole COVID thing, I encourage you all to really get involved in some sort of study abroad program and get outside of your comfort zone. and you get to make your own schedule. When you get to the real world, it's like, no, you don't get to make your own schedule. It's like work starts at this time and work ends at this time, and there you go. So enjoy it. And they used to sell a T-shirt at the school I went to that said, you can always make up an exam, you can never make up a party. I don't agree with that. It was a clever, cute little shirt, but my mother always taught us work hard, play hard. So if you're gonna play hard, make sure you're studying as well. Okay, fast forward. Decided to go to law school, loved it. No one in my family, I shouldn't say loved it, did not love law school. It was hard. Loved that I was working towards the career that I wanted to be in. I went to a school I really struggled on what school to pick. My dad put a deposit at University of Memphis actually for me, even though I did not ask him to. And that was when the school was still on the main campus. It had not moved downtown yet. And I was really looking at Howard, but I psyched myself out of kind of moving to DC. So I'll say this: take the chances that you think that scare you. And just because it's not something that is inside your comfort zone, do it anyway. I ended up going to school in St. Louis. I did enjoy. I met lifelong friends again. You learn so much. It was a great experience. Decided to move back to Memphis and work for the family business. When I graduated from law school, it was the heart, I mean, like the height of the economic recession, 2009. So firms that normally might have hired 13 or 14 people may have hired one, okay? And it doesn't mean that there wasn't an opportunity, but at the same time, my parents' business was growing. It was really like they expanded from leasing 2 spaces to building their own custom 12,000 square foot building and really expanding the business. And they needed my help. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do this. Now, mind you, in the back of my mind, I'm still like, I want to be involved in politics. I don't know how. We had a client who was the state representative, and she found out I was interested in politics and decided to start mentoring me, which was great. So that's something that I suggest. And before I went to law school, they really stressed this. I participated in a program that tries to help kind of prepare you for law school, and it's like just a little summer weekend thing. But what they suggested is, and I urge everyone to do this: think about what you want to be, the profession that you want to step into, and find someone who's in that field and ask them to be your mentor. Especially if you're a first generation, second generation, like you don't have, like, there are not any attorneys in my family. So it makes a difference. And when you're in school, people are much more inclined to mentor you than when you're like a recent graduate or you are really seeking employment. So establish those relationships, and you'd be surprised the types of tips and different things that they can give you that you just wouldn't know. So I would suggest that. So trying to get into politics, State Representative Barbara Cooper starts mentoring me. And for her, it's all about, you need to serve your community. So I got involved in a voter registration drive, a drive to try and save a local fire station that was closing. And right around that time, I mean, I've been working with her for maybe a month, and then the governor announced a special election. 7 of us ran for a state representative seat. It was crazy. My whole family jumped in. I call it my campaign momager. And my twin sister jumped in, and my dad jumped in. He was the treasurer. So it was truly a family affair. We just worked as hard as we could. It was one of those, we don't know what we're doing, but we're just going to work and work and work. And at the end of the day, you know that you did everything you could do. And it was a special election, so it was a shorter time period. It was from August to October, as opposed to normally it's like January to August. So it was neat. I certainly had to rely on people in my tribe. My best friends from college came up to Memphis. It was so much fun. They came up to Memphis the last weekend before the election. Now, mind you, I'm like losing my mind because you're nervous. I have billboards up, and everyone's like, this is so cool. And I'm like, no, it's not. If I lose, I'll get to drive by that thing for the next like 6 months. So that'll be cool. And also at the time, selfies weren't a big deal, and they certainly weren't a big one for me. So you have your face plastered all over this, driving down like Lamar, and you see your face on a billboard. It's kind of alarming. But anyway, my best friends from college came down, and they helped work the last weekend of the election. And we had a ton of fun. One of them accidentally knocked on the door, canvassing on one of my opponents. So that was funny. Another one gave a yard sign to a guy, and then they realized like he didn't have a yard to put it in. I think he may have been homeless, so I don't know what he was going to do with the sign. But it was just a fun weekend. We did different barbecues in the park. We did neighborhood parades, and they were there on election day. So it was so cool to have that support. And that's why, again, I think the relationships you build in college are so important, because those are your friends that know your dreams. They know they know you and they're willing to support you in it. So I won by 100 votes. So that's why I say it's always important to vote. You might not think it matters, but in state and local elections, it really does. And even on the federal level, because even though we have the electoral college, several states were decided by, thousands of votes, not like hundreds of thousands, like 10,000 or less. So that's something to keep in mind. Got to the state house. I was there for 5 years. I served representing District 91, which University of Memphis actually was in my district. It's not in my district now, so I hate that, but it was neat. My primary focus in the legislature has been around economic development, around criminal justice reform, and also around making sure that we have really good public schools. So my leadership style, when I got to the legislature, one, there's so many different microaggressions you have to deal with, and just outright. When I got there, I had so many people tell me how well spoken I was, which was, oh, I just love hearing that. Like, oh, thank you. You are too. And then I also got this, you're going to change how people view Memphis, which in the General Assembly, sometimes Memphis is code for Black. And so it's like, you're going to change how people view you. As a matter of fact, one lobbyist told me, and he caught me off guard, and I'd been there for probably about 4 years at that point. We were walking out of my office after we'd been meeting, and my admin and I were kind of in shock. He said, "You really are a credit to your people." And I thought, oh my goodness, wow, right? Exactly. Like I didn't even, and he said it on his way out the door. So it's like, I didn't even have time to react. I was kind of like, did he just say that? I looked at my admin and she's like, he just said that. Just could not believe it. So there are things like that you have to deal with. And again, that's in any profession you're in, honestly, especially when you are bringing something different to the table. But for me, I believe that what makes us different, our differences, are actually what makes us stronger. When you have a diverse table, people from all different backgrounds, it really does make a positive impact on the decisions that are being made. So when I got to the General Assembly, I realized quickly that it was about forming relationships. A lot of times people think, oh, I need to tear them up in the press, or I need to, rail against them on Twitter. There's a place for that. But for me, I try and focus on attacking problems and not attacking people. Because if I want to work with you on legislation, I can't call you a dummy, or like I'm trying not to cuss, okay, so sorry, that's why I came up with dummy. But I can't call you stupid on Twitter and then try and go to your office and meet with you and say, hey, I'd like us to work together on this legislation. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. No one wants to work with someone who doesn't like them or who insults them. So I focus on the issue. So yeah, you might support something that I don't like, so I'm going to attack the actual issue and not necessarily the person. And I found that being in the super minority, which means that the political party that I'm in, the majority party does not need a single vote from my party to pass any legislation. So in turn, I have to build relationships if I want to pass bills. When I got to the legislature, I passed 4 bills my first year, 6 bills my next year, 8 bills the year after that. By the time I left the House, I'd passed 29 bills, and it focused on education, saving our local schools from state takeover. I was able to reduce the expungement fee. At one point, Tennessee had the 3rd highest expungement fee to clear your records in the country. And so we were able to significantly reduce it. And then my first year in the Senate, it was actually eliminated. Able to pass a bill, which just was so cool how that worked out. It was a tax credit in 2015. It was called like the Community something Enhancement Act of 2015. I can't believe it's been that long, y'all, but time flies. And anyhow, this bill, it was funded in the governor's budget, which is also a big thing. And it incentivizes companies to bring jobs specifically to low income areas. Not necessarily like, okay, well, you create 10 jobs in Memphis. No, it has to be in a census tract with a poverty level of 30 or higher. And so I found that, 1, focusing on issues and not people, 2, building relationships, and 3, recognizing that everybody has a right to hold the view that they hold, even though I don't agree with them, has been helpful. Because sometimes I was sitting in committee and this member was just kind of railing about something, and I really was upset with him. And then I thought, you know what? He's representing the perspective that has formed his life, and so therefore he has a right to do it. But once you kind of recognize that, then it makes it a little easier to work with folks. Now, in this climate now, particularly what's happening on a federal level, I will say it is made me a little bit more little bit more aggressive. But once I was in the House, I served as the chair of the Tennessee Black Caucus during a pretty pivotal point in the legislature. It was really neat to bring people together around an issue, and actually to get support for our Black museums, support for create a program that will help nonprofits that are helping areas, specifically around youth in different urban areas. We were able to do things that we just hadn't been able to do. We did a town hall series across the state. It was pretty cool. Now, I decided to run for Senate in 2018. It was kind of scary, right? So I leaned on my tribe of support, of people that, like, I have different tribes. Like, I have a tribe of older women that are into politics. I have my friends who, like, keep it completely real. Like right now, they would be telling me, "You're talking too long and you're boring." So that's what they would say. Whereas my tribe of political women, they give me more advice, like, "Hey, I don't know if you should run for senator. Maybe you should." Had a conversation with them. Had a conversation with my family. Decided this is something I want to do, and it was a risk because I enjoyed being a state representative, but I it was around a pivotal vote where people were really trying to pressure this lobbying group, and these advocates were trying to pressure around school vouchers. And I remember sitting in my seat in the chamber, and I thought, I was somebody before I got elected, and I'll be somebody after. So if I have to lose my seat to vote as I believe is best, and also as my constituents have asked me to do, then that's what I'm going to do. And so I took that same energy when I ran for the Senate. It was two of us ran. It was Justin Ford, so I had to kind of deal with the legacy and that name, which was interesting. When I decided to run, some of my male colleagues basically asked me, like, how come I didn't talk to them first, or like I should have waited to decide if they wanted to run, which I thought was absolutely absurd. You just have to, no matter, people will try and place barriers in front of you, or they'll try and act like you don't have a right to do what you think is best for yourself. But if you know that this is the path that you should be on, and you have the right heart, and you're willing to work for it, it does not matter what naysayers or people who want to steal your light or your shine will try and say. Ran for the Senate. It was crazy. My sister and I, she was my campaign manager, and she was so having a twin is always a special experience. People ask me how I'm good at negotiating and compromise. I'm like, I've been compromising since I was in the womb. So certainly adept at that. So she worked as hard as she could, and it was really neat to have kind of the family involved as well. We worked our butts off. I mean, I was outside working a poll, like a voting poll, and I was out there so long that I'm like, oh wow, I'm starting to feel cold, and it's like 1,000 degrees outside. So perhaps we need to take a break. Like, we got so dark we couldn't find makeup that matched our skin. We drove around two pickup trucks. I had one, she had one that had like an 8x4 sign in the back. So imagine driving. You cannot get on the expressway because the thing will fly off into the middle of the street. So imagine having to drive around a pickup truck, and I'm short. I'm sitting down, but I'm 5'1". So, and the sign blocked the backup camera. It was quite the adventure. I have a friend who's in the state house in Mississippi, and she insisted that she let us borrow a 36 passenger van to take people to vote. And so my mom drove that, and she's also short. So it was just, we were hilarious. It was just, but my friends were involved, my family was involved. We were able to connect with the community, and I thought it was just an awesome experience. Now, meanwhile, in between that, I've been able to get involved with some national politics as well. When Hillary Clinton ran, I mean, and I'm old school. I'm older than y'all, so I remember when she was first lady, and I mean, she was one of my, like, political mentors. So in my mind, and so when I got to meet her and work to support her campaign, it was like a dream. And so when she came to Memphis, I was able to introduce her at some events, and that's another thing. When I introduced her, my colleagues were like, I had no idea you could speak like that. It was just, it's so funny. So that's why I say, like, just be ready when your moment happens, be ready. And also, don't be afraid to work hard, right? So when I first started working with the Clinton campaign, they didn't realize I was an elected official. I was hosting and planning grassroots events. Anything they asked me to do, I was willing to do. I wasn't like, I'm an elected official, do this for me, and I'm important, so I should have XYZ. And I think when you do that, when you show that you really are in it for the right reasons, then things just happen to line up for you. Like, I was able to speak at the DNC, which was really cool. And then coming around this go around, I also was included with a list of rising leaders, and it was a little different. I thought we were going to be at the DNC. Instead, we had a virtual kind of speaking thing, which was kind of cool. But I will say this as far as leadership, it came down to working hard and having an opportunity being presented and being ready for it. That's really, I think, what is key. And then also finding something that you're passionate about. When you're passionate about it, it's important to you. It's not, it doesn't seem like work. It's something you really, and I know it sounds so cliche, but it really is something you enjoy doing, which is important because as we build our careers, I mean, it's something that you're planning for a long term, and also recognize that just because you might have a degree in something or you thought this was your career path, that it won't necessarily be one. Like I went to school to be an attorney, to be a litigator. I have not litigated a single case. Like I work for my family business, which we'll see if I transition out of that. I always say that I'm going to, and then I don't. So, but you can use your skills in a different way as long as you're doing something that is not one. I tell my newly elected officials when I talk to them, one, it's not illegal. That's key. Okay. Two, it's not unethical. And three, you enjoy it and you're helping others, then you got to keep doing it. So those are my takeaways from being in the state Senate. I enjoy it, and I feel like the minute I don't and the minute I'm not effective anymore, that's when I'll try and do something else. But it's it for me is fulfilling, and I think that that's kind of what you have to look at. As college students, also, I will say this: um, if you're thinking about going to grad school, definitely, again, having a mentor helps because it'll kind of point you in the direction. Well, this place has the best program, or this place has the best. Like you have to think about future employment, student loan debt, like what all that looks like, because it really is important and it will influence how you are able to. How you're able to move in the future. Like I have some friends who work at big law firms that they don't particularly want to work for, but it's enabling them to pay off their student loans. But they do have a plan as well because they say, well, I'm going to do this for 5, 6 years, pay off my loans, and then I'm going to go do X, Y, Z. So I say do that. And then the last thing I'll tell you, and then I'll kind of open it for questions because you know I'm an elected official and attorney. I'll never stop talking. Is that do it afraid? There are so many things in life that you might not feel like you're ready for. Like I kept thinking, well, whenever my mentor retires, I'll eventually run for her seat in the state house. And a month later, I was running for that seat. So we just jumped in. It wasn't something that, it was terrifying. But you do it afraid, you do it anyway, and you'd be surprised, taking that leap, stepping outside of your comfort zone, what it will yield. So do it, and don't be afraid, and always make sure that you are maintaining your integrity and your reputation when you do it. So I'll take questions now if y'all have any.
So I'll go ahead and kick off questions while students feel free to type your question in the chat and I will vocalize it for you. Or if you're comfortable, you can take yourself off of mute. But I'll go ahead and kick us off with questions. So you talked about mentorship and the importance of finding someone that can guide you, to your ultimate career dreams. So I feel like in the leadership a lot we talk about mentors, but how do you suggest students go about identifying a mentor and asking them to be a mentor, to serve as their mentor?
Yeah,
Because that can be kind of awkward if it's,
it's so
you're a
awkward.
college student and they're like a CEO. So
Hmm.
any advice for students in securing a mentor? Should it be a phone call? Should it be an email? Should you wait
Yeah.
for is time, place, and manner important? So all those things.
All right, very good. I will say it is so awkward. So you really just have to shoot your shot. I always tell people try and do an email first, see if that works. Just be as professional as possible, and don't be afraid to email them more than once. I definitely, because I will do this myself. I will flag an email and not get back to it, and it's not because I don't want to. It's because I just get busy and I get overwhelmed. So I say try and one go to the top, like she said, look at the CEO. Just the only thing they can tell you is no, I don't have time to mentor you right now. Or they might be able to refer you to someone else. But one, make sure that you come correct. You know what I mean? Like make sure your grammar, your spelling, everything makes sense. Be as polite as possible. Always be kind to support staff. A lot of people miss out on that because they are rude to the admin or they're rude to the assistant. And, those types of folks control whether or not you get a phone call or an email back. So keep that in mind. And just keep asking and go to networking events, things like that in the community. I mean, obviously you're a little bit stuck right now, but definitely take advantage of that and look the person up, right? So you're at University of Memphis. If this person is a CEO and they're a University of Memphis alum, that's a great connection that you can have. Or if you both like to play tennis, or if you're on a team and they play basketball when they're in college, anything you can think of, it's a great way to connect. And when you get that opportunity, just prepare yourself. Do not show up rolling out of bed late, anything like that, because everything that you do in that perspective, in that lane, is an interview of sorts. So just be ready.
Thank you for that. So we do have a student question from Emily. She's asking, do you have any advice for anyone thinking of a career in government, or any recommendations for internships?
Yes, for sure. Okay, one, government has so many different layers and careers that I didn't even know about till I got to the General Assembly. One, being a lobbyist is really a very neat, whether you're doing it for a corporation, you have your own shop, or you're doing it for a nonprofit. It really is a neat way to be involved in government. There are opportunities to be able to, if you're an attorney, they have legal drafting. If you're interested in research, they have researchers. Everybody has every department has so many different layers of employees. So you'd be surprised. It just is a matter of whether or not you want to work for the government or not. Now, internships. University of Memphis, along with several other state schools, participates in an internship program in the General Assembly. It's in the spring semester. Like last year, I had an intern from Memphis and I had an intern from Tennessee State. And so it's a really neat program. You get school credit. There's some online work that you'll do as well. And you do get a stipend. So I think if you're able to participate, please make sure that you sign up. Sign up, and interviews and things are in the fall. It's just an awesome program. They do their own mock government. They elect. So a couple of years ago, I had a student from Memphis and he was elected governor. I mean, it's just such a cool experience, and it's the best way. A lot of folks who were interns then are lobbyists now. They are in state government. Some of them, okay, let me give you an example. Jim Strickland, our mayor, he was an intern for Congressman Cohen when he was in the state Senate. So how cool is that? Now Congressman Cohen is a congressman, and Jim is the mayor of the city. So it's a really neat way to get involved and learn a lot about politics. So please apply.
Thank you for that. So we have a question from a next student, Lyric. So Lyric, if you want to go ahead and take yourself off of mute, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me fine? Okay. My question was, when you were speaking on like your, I don't know how to necessarily word that, but when you were saying your past experiences when it came to you being well-spoken and interacting with those people when they said those, the things that they said to you that were really out of line, it's like a two-part. So how did you go about, how did you go about like answering, like following up after? Did you just leave it at a dead silent, or are there like ways that you feel like you can like educate them to tell them like that's not the best thing to say to the person, especially a person of color who's like worked so hard to get to those higher level positions, to say that feels like a lot of your identity is stripped away from you because it's not a part of you, is you're being another race or something else. But how did you go about responding to those things?
That's a great question, and it's definitely hard when you're in the moment. I have actually, it's called like being nice nasty a little bit. So I'm like, thank you, so are you, like that, and that kind of shocks them, like, okay. Another thing, if it's someone that I know and I know that they really don't want to be how they're coming across, I will kind of take them aside and say, listen, I know that you are trying to say that you view that as a compliment, but it's actually acting like it's a surprise or it's some sort of exception that I'm able to articulate my thoughts. It's not a compliment. So I think that's one thing to try and educate folks while not making them feel like they've been called out or embarrassed. Because a lot of times people's intentions, or at least their outward intentions, are not as sinister as it comes across. Now, the nice and nasty are for the ones who I know are just jerks and who there's not much hope for them. Like, oh, well, thank you so much. So are you. And then they get super confused and you just kind of leave it at that. But otherwise, try and pull them aside and talk to them. I've actually had several of my colleagues reach out to me and talk to me about everything that's been going around George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And it's difficult because you have people who literally everything you say, they're trying to defend themselves of it as if it's an indictment on them and who they are. I'm like, no, but this is just how the world is. And you cannot suggest that my experience is not true and is not real. So I just say try and be as patient as you can, because again, not all the time that people are saying it in a way that really wants to be ugly and rude, but sometimes they are, and that's when you hit them with the "so are you."
Thank you so much. Thanks, Liz, for
Pleasure.
your question. So we have 4 questions for you. The first one's coming from a freshman. So the question is, every leader faces barriers that puts a pause on fulfilling goals. What things best helped you keep pushing and staying focused?
Okay, so one, my tribe of friends. I mean, like, get around people who have not similar career goals, but are just dedicated and oriented. There's a saying that folks say, like, if you want to be an eagle, you got to hang out with eagles. If you want to soar like an eagle, you can't hang out with the chickens. Lord, sorry, guys. A reporter just called me. So, I think that's important. Being around folks who are just, they are dedicated and they're about their business too. One, because it's fun, and then two, you don't have to feel like someone's trying to pull you down. When I was in law school, Ti of all people was a speaker at the National Black Law Student Association uh, luncheon that we had. It was funny because he was about to go to jail for possession of all these weapons, and we kept joking we'd rather hear from his attorney, who got him 1 year as a 7-time felon for possessing weapons, as opposed to going to jail forever. But he said something that was really profound, and it's, don't hang around folks that have less to lose than you do, because at the end of the day, it's harder to pull people up with you than to just to be able to be around folks who are moving in that same direction. And he kind of highlighted the fact that you look at the Michael Vick situation, not to say Michael Vick was not doing wrong. I'm not even going to get into that because dogfighting is awful. But the reason he was hanging around folks who were also criminals. And so they took plea deals in order to, and basically snitched on him. So that's not a good example because dogfighting is awful. But I'll just say, make sure that you're around, get you a good tribe of people that can support you, and just keep moving forward. Don't let somebody dictate your pathway. It's hard, but stay focused on your goal. Write your goals down. That is very helpful. And if you need to reset, do that, and understand that it's not all rosy. But at the end of the day, the hard edges in your life will round out once you get to where you want to be.
Great, thank you. So I have another question from a freshman. If you had a chance to go back in time, would you change anything about your decisions that you made to get you where you need to go, where you are now? Wow.
Ooh, that is a great question. Oh my goodness. Well, I used to think that I would have gone to a different law school, that I would have decided to go to Howard, but then I think every step that you take, every part of your path and journey gets you to where you are. So if I went to Howard, perhaps even though I wanted to be involved in politics and that was in DC, perhaps I would have not come back to Memphis and helped with the family business and decided to run for office and serve my community. And I find that to be very fulfilling. So I often used to think, well, maybe I should have gone to a different law school. But I will say this, if I had one thing to do differently in college, I would study abroad. Okay. So, and if you don't have the funds, you'd be surprised how many scholarships are available, grants are available. And heck, if you get a good mentor, they could help you out too.
All right, thank you. So another question from a freshman. So she's not sure about the things she's hearing. There's a lot of illegal things going on in the government. Do you ever question the integrity of your own government? And if so, how do you come to terms with those things?
Well, yeah, that's I do. So I'll tell you a big issue that I've struggled with. In the state of Tennessee, we have not expanded Medicaid. Now, this was something that came out of the Affordable Care Act during the Obama administration. My colleagues in the House and Senate were very anti-Obama, and so they did not want to fund or to pass the legislation to allow us to expand. Now, this prevents about 200,000 people from getting medical insurance and care that they need. When Louisiana, within the first 30 days of Louisiana expanding Medicaid, they detected 3 women were detected to have breast cancer that normally would not have had these preventative screenings. So that bothers me when I see people who make decisions about politics and they don't focus on people. And it is hard to reconcile that. Those are the days where it's like, oh my gosh, this is hard, and why am I putting myself through this? And then I remember that if I'm not there to fight for the people in my community, then who will be? I mean, I'm not just there for the easy days. I'm not just there when things go the way I want them to go. Another difficult day was when we were debating giving undocumented students in-state tuition, something that was strongly supported by University of Memphis. It's not giving people a scholarship, it's giving them a chance. And the hateful rhetoric coming out of my colleagues, I mean, I've never cried in committee, but I didn't cry, but I just could not make my remarks because it was so hurtful to think that people would dehumanize folks so much. So when I see those types of behaviors that I know hurt people, that's hard. When they defunded the diversity program, University of Tennessee, because they didn't like the fact that they were using pronouns and that they would say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. They said all of them, Merry Christmas. They were trying to be inclusive. Those are days where you're like, are you guys serious? Like, what planet are y'all from? How can you profess to represent people when you engage in this type of behavior that is just so anti-people? But we just keep fighting. I said, those are the days you go in the mirror, you check your makeup, you get back out there and you raise hell. And you just do it as much as you can. It's definitely disheartening to see all the corruption going on a federal level. We're in a position that I never thought we would be in as a country. And it has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. I want to make that very clear. It has to do with what an actual leader is and what they represent. Because I have many colleagues across the aisle that do all sorts of great things. Mark White is one of them. I work with him a lot. He carries a lot of my legislation in the House, and he's a Republican, and I'm a Democrat in the Senate. It's not about that. It's about whether or not you are taking advantage of the office that you serve in and serving yourself instead of the people.
Great, thank you. So I have 2 questions on deck for you. The first question is coming from a junior student named Austin. So as a human, everyone has failures. What would you say was your greatest failure and how did you learn from it?
Ooh, that's a good one. Greatest failure. Ooh, I'm trying to think. I feel like it had to have happened in college. It did happen in college. One, yes. Okay, the last class I took when I wanted to graduate, I was about to graduate, I took what was the class called? I took ragtime. Now, mind you, ragtime was super easy. Everybody in the class cheated. I do not cheat, so I did not. And I took the class pass fail. I should have just taken an outright grade, but I ended up like failing the class by 1 point, something absurd. And I think it's just, I just didn't do what I was supposed to do, y'all. I'll be honest with you. I had senioritis. I already got into law schools I wanted to go to. It was an easy class. I took it for granted. So that was a big failure of mine. And basically I had to go to summer school to make it up. So that's how I fixed that failure. But that was a big one. I'd forgotten about it, to be honest with you. Otherwise, I mean, there are little things you do every day that you're like, dang, I should have done that differently. But that was a big one. Oh, and then also getting my car towed when I was in law school. That was real fun. So that's a reminder. If you're parking and you do not have a parking pass or you are not paying your meter, they will come and get you. So
Thank you. So the next question I have is from a freshman student. So the question is, how do you deal with people that discourage you or doubt you? Because sometimes there will be those people that try and talk you out of something because they just don't believe in you. So how do you work through that?
okay, so I have a perfect example. Like, remember I told you my tribe of political women that I talked to when I decided to run for Senate? Well, one of them felt like I had only been in the House for 5 years and I would look like I was just jumping from position to position. And she thought that I shouldn't run. And that weighed a little heavy on me because I'm like, I value her. I respect her opinion. And she is outright discouraging me. What the heck? But I think you kind of have to search inside for yourself and find and see what feels right for you. Because that's really what it was. I talked to my family, I prayed about it, and they felt like this was the right decision for me. And you'll know it. It's kind of like when you're deciding what college you go to. It feels right, and that's how it felt for me. So I think that's what you kind of have to do. But people will discourage you all along the way. Some of them are haters. Some of them just don't like the fact that they're not able to do it themselves. When I decided to run for, I'm the treasurer of a national organization, and I had all sorts of naysayers. I even had somebody, after when I ran for reelection for that position, the woman who's the current president decided to put somebody in the race because she was like, I don't even know what she wanted. I mean, she hated the fact that it looked like I was on a pathway to become the president in the next couple of years. But people will always discourage you because they're threatened by you, or they don't like the fact that that you're able to accomplish things they couldn't accomplish in ages when you couldn't. Like, I had been in the General Assembly for only 2 years, and I spoke at the DNC, and none of the colleagues that I served with now can say that. And then to speak 2 years in a row, two conventions in a row is a big deal. I just say focus on your work, focus on you. There are going to be people who hate on you and who try and dim your light, and it doesn't matter. Forget them. You don't need them. It's hard in the moment, okay? But focus on yourself and your pathway, and just know my saying is keep moving forward. Because I'm gonna tell you guys, I had some colleagues, some male colleagues, who were like, "You should have asked us for permission," and they pretended like they were going to run for Senate until the day of the filing deadline. They didn't even talk to me until afterwards, and then all of a sudden they're like my best friend again. You see what kind of nonsense we have to deal with? But you just do your thing. Don't let anybody block you. You got this.
All right, thank you so much. That was the last question from the audience. Once again, thank you so much for speaking on your experiences, talking to us about your leadership development, and giving those nuggets of advice, because especially during these times, any advice that you can get is helpful. So I'm going to say anyone that has to go to class next, or you got to work, go ahead and log out. If you do want to ask a one-on-one question, feel free to stay. She'll be hanging around until everyone's gone.